his ego is so big that he thinks that Jesus is asking him like to help in this moment in this way. I love Zebedee kind of going into dad mode there a little bit. He's not looking past that to see the hurt of Simon. He hasn't even asked him kind of what's going on or how he can help or anything. Welcome to The Snipe Life, where we look at creativity through the lens of Christianity. And today we're going to be looking at The Chosen, Season 3, Episode 7. This was one of my favorite episodes, if not my favorite episode from the season so far, just in the way that it looked and the storytelling that was in this one. I know there wasn't like these major miracles that happened or any like insane biblical moments, but it was very, very well done. And so I'm excited to kind of dive into this one. Let's talk about John in this specific section. Let's break down the pieces where he talks to Jesus and then with Simon. Obviously, this is one of the most impactful emotional moments of the episode here, but I love how he actually is angry when Jesus asks him to do these things, because not often do we actually go into obedience with Jesus in a happy way. Not often are we like, oh yeah, I really want to do that. Oh yeah, I really want to work out every day and eat the right stuff and make sure that I have a healthy body. Not, I really want to, do all these things that I know are going to be better for me that I don't do because I'm just lazy or selfish or prideful or whatever. And so oftentimes we fall into those traps, and here John is doing the same thing. So I love to see that from him. And then he sees the outcome later on, and he's like, oh, this is why Jesus asked me to be a part of this. So let's jump in and let's talk about what this true friendship kind of looks like here, and obedience to Christ looks like as we look at John here. So let's jump in.
John, may I have a word?
Yes, Rabbi. I can do that.
This isn't going to be easy.
I'm sorry?
The Decapolis will be perilous. The hearts I must reach there are hard, Jew and Gentile alike. Our time will be fraught.
We are ready for anything, Master. We have Z. I can ask my father to come along for extra help. He's good with crowds.
I want you to stay behind.
It's funny to me that John's ego is still as big as it is. Like, Jesus tells him all this stuff is happening, and John's like, oh, I can fix that. I'll ask my dad to come along. We'll fix it. No problem. Like, his ego is so big that he thinks that Jesus is asking him like to help in this moment in this way. It's interesting because we're seeing John struggle with that throughout these seasons here. He's really going to come to the point later when he is really a servant to Christ. But right now, he's still kind of like this ego-led kind of youngster in a lot of ways. He's like this young, boisterous man who's trying to get things done, right, and trying to be the best. And Jesus telling him that he's beloved and all this stuff is kind of building up that ego. But in these moments here, Jesus is really refining him, and I love to see that.
The rest of us will leave in the morning. You will stay and wait.
You just said the situation was fraught, which means I should be there more than ever.
For what? Strength in numbers? Our challenges there are not based on how many followers are surrounding me. This is not about the lack of resources.
Well, then what?
Hard hearts, John. Cold, unyielding granite.
I don't understand.
You seem to think that we needed a full group for this trip, hmm? Who was missing at today's meeting?
Oh.
You will stay and wait for him. The success of this trip depends on Simon.
Now, this is, again, an ego check for John. Jesus is saying the success of this trip depends on Simon. John expects that the success on most of these trips depends on him, right? It's an ego check for him.
Master, whatever it is you need, I can provide.
There you go. You see, he's expecting, hey, I can take care of this. Don't worry about Simon. I can be the key to this trip. Just tell me what to do.
Waiting for Simon is what I'm asking you to provide.
Simon is distracted. He's not himself. Something is off.
Simon's not as good as me. Something's off with him right now. I'm at my tip-top shape. I'm ready for the game. Bring me in. Put me in, coach.
Maybe it's better if he stays behind.
John, I love you. But that's not the approach I take to people in pain. You should know that by now.
What about one of the others? Wouldn't it be better if one of them...
You've known Simon since childhood.
What about Matthew? They were able to work together to find Mary in Jericho.
Did you think that pairing them up for that task was a good idea at the time?
This reminds me so much of Moses, right? Moses in the wilderness, as he sees the burning bush, what does he do? He talks to the burning bush and he says, but I'm not very good at this. I don't know how to talk very well, right? and God keeps on giving him these moments over and over again. And here we're seeing very similar things where it's like, I don't want to do this. Like, can't someone else do it? Like, like someone like Matthew was with him before. Couldn't you put Matthew to it? This reminds me so much of how I have acted in the past when God asks me to do certain things. And it's scary for me. I love to do the things that I feel like I'm equipped for, right? Like I love doing these live streams and making these videos. I feel like I'm equipped to do that in a lot of ways. But when I was first coming into this, that would not have been the case at all, right? When God first asked me to step out 5 months ago and leave, the career that I had been in for 10 years of being a worship pastor, that to me was terrifying, right? And I don't know if I'm good at anything else. Like music is all that I've known. And so that's kind of what John's doing here. He's afraid to step out into this, and he's offering any solution to get out of it because he feels uncomfortable with it, because he thinks that he deserves something else. He thinks that he deserves to be there right next to Jesus, helping him in everything that he's doing. And that's not what Jesus is asking him to do right now. And he doesn't know why, but he's going to find out later.
John, it has to be you. No more questions.
I love that. If you're watching this video right when it released, we're actually in Israel right now. Me and Vanessa are hosting a trip with a bunch of people, 34 people to be exact, and we're going all over Israel and looking at everything that Jesus did and where he was and where he lived. And man, it's crazy. But we want you guys to come on our next trip. We're going to have a trip in January of 2024, and we'd love to have you be a part of that. If you want to do that, you can sign up with the links down in the description down below. And it's really easy. All you need to do is have $500 for the deposit and then pay off the rest of it 90 days before the trip is done. This is going to be an awesome trip, and I have an amazing host lined up named Isaac David, who runs a YouTube channel called Daily Disciple. He talks about all different stuff from pop culture of Christianity to progressive Christianity and how that's a harmful thing in society today. There's a lot of things that we really agree on, and I love the way that he teaches and talks. So I wanted to invite him on this trip so that he could have some interaction with you guys, and so that we could get him in some of our content when we go to Israel next year. Anyway, I'd love for you to be a part of that. If you want to sign up, the links are in the description down below. This is really funny because during filming, I think someone got sick with COVID maybe during filming. And so if we if we look at this, and you can see my cursor right yet. If we look right here, this is supposed to be Simon the Zealot. But there's like a stunt double here. And in this shot, like it's just so hard to hide because you can just certainly tell that it's not him. And so they just got a guy that kind of vaguely looks like the rest of the disciples. Whenever this first came out, the behind the scenes of this section here, everybody that is like detectives like we are on this channel, they were like sending me pictures and like taking screenshots and like, who is this guy? Is this a new character? What's going on? But it just turns out that it's just a stunt double of who's supposed to be Simon the Zealot, I believe, in this scene here. And we're also missing John and Simon, obviously, because they're off on doing their own things. It's a really, really funny moment. I just wanted to point that out real fast. Let me get to the next section here. Super, super funny to me, though. All right, here we go. Let's jump in here.
Shalom, Simon.
What are you doing here?
Did you sleep in?
I didn't sleep at all.
Why?
Where's everyone?
They left before dawn for the Decapolis. No one.
So he just realizes that he's been left back behind, and he didn't get any sleep because he's still dealing with all this stuff. We don't even know if he's staying at Eden's house right now. Yeah, really interesting. I wonder what's going on with him and where he feels like he's at. But obviously very lost in terms of where the guys are, what they're doing in the mission of everything, because he's just so stuck in what he's dealing with right now. Now, the ladies have no idea kind of what's going on, although I think in episode 8, they're going to obviously get more of an insight into that.
Told you?
If you run, you could probably catch up with him.
Not much of a runner.
Now, this is a really funny reference. If you actually read the Gospels, in the Gospel of John, it makes very clear to point out who got to the tomb first. So when Jesus is resurrected and the tomb is opened, of course, women are the first ones to see that that's the fact. But when they go back and they tell the other apostles what happened, they run to the tomb. And the two that are really running to the tomb are Simon Peter and John. and as they're running, John makes it very clear that John wins that race. And so throughout all of the Chosen, there's been these little funny moments of Peter kind of being bad at running, or that he's slower, or that he's not very good at running. And so that was a really, really funny jab there from Simon Peter.
Simon, what are you doing here?
I'm having a cup of water. I'm thirsty.
Why aren't you on your way with the others? Did they tell you to stay behind and look after the
I
women?
didn't know about the trip. I thought Andrew and Philip went and sorted it out.
You're disconnected, Simon. You have no clue what's going on.
You rebuke me, Zebedee?
Abba?
Don't play games with me, kid. Salome and I were at your bris.
Abba.
I love Zebedee kind of going into dad mode there a little bit. He's like, listen, I know, I've been there since you were born, bro. Like, don't play games with me. Like, we were there, and he can tell that there's something wrong with Simon. So he's trying to get to the heart of him there, although John kind of steps in because that's Jesus asked him to have that role for Simon. So.
What's gotten into him?
What's gotten into? Just go get your things.
Even now, we can tell that John really does not want to be here, right? He really does not want to follow through with what Jesus has asked him to do, but he knows that he has to because he wants to be obedient, right?
Hi. I travel light. What are you doing here anyway?
I came here to wait for you.
Really?
Oh, believe me, it was not my choice. If it were up to me, I would have left you behind.
Oh, did someone eat your breakfast, John? What have I ever done to you?
It's what you haven't done.
This again?
You miss meetings. You hang around all night with a Roman official. Your wife doesn't even know where you are.
So leave me.
So he hasn't been home. He's been hanging out with Gaius all night and kind of walking around and doing his own thing. So his wife doesn't even know where he is.
Behind, like chaff in the wind.
I can't.
He's like, I would if I could, Simon.
Jesus said the success of this trip to the Decapolis depends on you. You, of all people. I don't understand it, and frankly, I feel disrespected by it.
And frankly, I feel disrespected. Again, it's this ego thing. John thinks that he should be the guy, but he's not. Simon Peter is the guy.
What am I going to say to Jesus, huh? No?
Yeah, you could.
You know I can't do that.
That's some doubt and disobedience a little bit, kind of flowing through Simon there.
Let's go.
He just angrily kisses the mezuzah. That's so funny to me. All right, we'll fast forward again. Get to this last scene here with Simon and John. Here we go. We see this portion here.
It's the time I can't miss.
You said you go with him to the ends of the earth.
Yeah, that doesn't mean every time he goes somewhere. And the Decapolis is hardly the ends of the earth.
Didn't say it was.
You know, I'm remembering something you told me in Samaria.
I prefer not to talk about Samaria, if that's okay with you.
That field he tricked you into cultivating for a Samaritan, to correct your
It
prejudice.
was not a trick. And I'm not exactly fond of that memory, Simon.
Melech, with a broken leg. You said in the morning he was healed, but we were already at Fatina's house. Jesus didn't have to be present to perform the miracle.
What's your point?
But why can't he perform a miracle in the Decapolis from Capernaum instead of dragging us all into mostly Gentile territory that already has it out for us?
This has an undertone too, not only of the Decapolis, but also of Eden. If he could heal Melech from far away, why couldn't he heal Eden from far away? Why couldn't he have stopped that from happening? You know, so it's not just the undercurrent of, hey, he could help the Decapolis right now, but he's also building up to Eden here.
I'm sure he'd be more than willing to answer your question since success depends on you being there.
Off it, he's nicer with you than with me. I don't hold that against you, do I?
Oh, how very generous of you. Any other virtues you'd like to lord over me? Simon the exceptional? Simon the distinct? And also, yes, maybe he calls me beloved sometimes, but that's only because you have Eden.
Again, the Gospel of John always refers to John as the beloved disciple. And so, yes, he calls me beloved sometimes, which is really funny. I love that. But John, again, it's this ego thing with him, and he's not looking past that to see the hurt of Simon. He hasn't even asked him kind of what's going on or how he can help or anything. John's really focused on himself until things kind of break here.
I don't know what you're whining about when you have found someone like her.
You can see this moment, it's kind of like awkward because you're not quite sure like what's going on here. You know that he's feeling sad, but he's not like outright crying. Remember, he's not like a girl, right? I know a lot of times, girls will kind of let their emotions flow or they can't hold it in, so they let it out. Guys will oftentimes try to control their emotions, right? And so if I'm crying, I will stop for a second and try to recenter myself and stop myself from crying so that I can continue to communicate what I'm going to communicate or, continue on with what I'm trying to do. So here we can see that Simon is trying to hold it in here. He's trying to stop it from happening. And he's trying to not show those emotions. He's trying to hold it in and deal with it himself like he has been for the last few days.
Look, I'm sorry. I went too far. I know I wouldn't want anybody to resent me for having a wife. Simon? Hey, Simon. Hey, I didn't mean anything by it. Simon, what did I say? Simon?
I trusted Jesus.
Of course you do. Wait. Trusted?
Yeah, quick question. You said trusted. That means past tense, right? You trusted Jesus. We can see this starting to deteriorate a little bit. Now we know from episode 8 that he has another conversation with John, or we know from the trailer from episode 8 that he has another conversation with John where he says, my faith isn't the problem. I think I was a mistake. And so it's not only deterioration of trust in Jesus, but it's also a deterioration in trust in himself, right? In faith in himself. And so he's really dealing with a lot of different things right now coming from this whole miscarriage thing.
I trusted that Eden would be okay. Safe while we were gone. I didn't know it, John. But before we all left on our 2x2 missions, we conceived a child. And while we were gone...
No. I'm so sorry, brother.
When it happened, she almost died along with the baby. There was so much damage, the doctor said she might never be able.
So we get more clarification here. Eden obviously has spent some time explaining to him exactly what happened. She almost died during the miscarriage. Not only did she almost die, but her insides are actually damaged to the point where they may not be able to ever have children ever. So that is heartbreaking. It's even more than just losing the baby, but it's losing the opportunity maybe for a future baby.
Tonight, Evan. Why didn't you tell us?
Because I'm furious, John. I'm so angry. Look, he is who he says he is. I don't believe it. I know it. He's the first and the last. He can do anything.
This kind of harks back to the scripture talking about when Jesus asks Simon Peter, "Who do you say that I am?" Right? He knows who Jesus is, but the way that he replies during that scripture is like, well, some say you are this, and some say you are that. And he says, "No, Peter, who do you say that I am?" Right? And so that's kind of harking back to that as well. I wonder if that scene will come up in the future, and we'll see kind of a callback to here.
How could he let something like this
That's not the right way to think about
happen
this.
to Eden? Happen to me? Let's keep going.
You're not exempt, Simon. Remember, he said that in this world, bones will still break, hearts will still break, but he's making a way for people to access a better kingdom.
And that is a harken back to season 2, episode 1, with Melech, right? Like that same episode they keep on referring to. Again, that's true. Hearts will still break, bones will still break. Like the world is still broken, and Jesus didn't heal everybody that he came in contact with. I think of the example of the pool of Bethesda, right? There's so many people that he didn't heal there, but he did heal the one that he was there for. He didn't heal everybody at that pool. Why? Well, because he didn't, right? It's just what he chose to do. And that's the way that it is. We can't understand God's ways in its entirety. And so here, Simon is going through the same thing of, but why does it have to be me?
Heals total strangers while I gave up everything for him.
But that does not mean that your life will now be perfect. In fact, he said the complete opposite.
I don't want to talk about this anymore. Life was a whole lot easier when we fished.
That's so true, right? Like we talk about on this channel all the time. Following Jesus is better, not easy. It's not easier to follow Jesus. Sometimes it's way, way, way harder. But it is the way that it is. And through that hardship, we learn and we grow and we become closer with God. And here, Simon is experiencing that. He said it was way easier when we were just fishermen.
Could have lost a baby while you were a fisherman, Simon. We just wouldn't have anybody to turn to.
He could have prevented it, and he did not.
Sounds like we're close. He said, it all depends on you.
Here we go. Simon takes off, and that's basically the end of the episode here. But we see here, obviously, Simon's way faster than John, so maybe the whole running joke is just a lie, you know? And that's the end of the episode there. Wow. Yeah, John, being the friend that he is, he shows examples of being such a good friend. But before the point that he recognizes that Simon is actually in pain and he's hurting, he's not a very good friend. In fact, he's being a very, reluctant follower of Jesus in a lot of ways. And so, yeah, it's very hard for him to get to the point where he can actually be obedient and see what Christ had for him, had in store for him. And it's not just that he's going to be with Simon in this moment, but I believe this is going to continue into episode 8. Like I said, I haven't seen episode 8 yet, so I'm assuming we're going to see that kind of come into fruition there in episode 8, as we've seen little bits and pieces of that through the trailers and different things that are upcoming. Yeah, I think this relationship is going to strengthen throughout time. Obviously, him and James, Peter and James and John are the three that are closest with Jesus. They're there for, the biggest events of what Jesus does. And so to see that kind of form a little bit and those relationships and those bonds get closer is really cool. I'd love to see some of that between Simon and maybe Big James as well. It'll be cool to see. Thanks for checking out this video. This is actually a small portion of a much larger live stream that we did, talking all about this episode and breaking everything down. So if you want to see that full live stream with no cuts or any edits or anything, you can go and see that over on our Patreon at patreon.com/thesnipelife. This is the best possible way that you can actually support us in this ministry and our channel. This is my full-time job now, and so it means a ton to me if you would partner with us and help us to continue to grow this community. Anyway, we'll see you on the next one. Peace.